Stevenage 1, Oxford United 2. Here is my post-match verdict as our first league home game of the season ends in defeat. If you could give me a like, a subscribe and a follow on TikTok would be much appreciated. Let's get into it. So we open with a defeat in the league at home this season at the new Sporter Arena. And today's performance, I think a lot of people are going to be really disappointed with. I think it was a really negative performance tactically and in terms of how we just played. Today we played against an Oxford side that in the second half really injected energy and quality into the game, and that was all it was necessary to take all 3 points really. A good goal, a good header from Gatlin Adonkor, and then a penalty that was foolishly given away by Philip Marshall in the end. We were cut through open and then Philip Marshall just fouls him. Penalty scored by Cameron Bannigan, who really ran the show in midfield, and I don't think we really touched him in that second half. They played with more pace, more urgency and just more quality. And I think today really exposed our lack of creativity, our lack of potency in the final third as well. And I think today, we set up right. We set up in the 3-5-2, which you want to see us set up in the correct system, the correct formation, especially at home. Last season in countless home games, we thrived on that formation and that system. And actually in the first half, we did have a few decent 5 to 10 minute spells of popping the ball about really nicely, putting some nice passages of play together, especially wide. I think starting Pattenden and Saxon Early, of course, gives you that defensive security. But, with Saxon Early in particular, you can really bombard forward, use his pace going forward to link up with your two strikers and your players in midfield as well. Unfortunately, Jasper Pattenden picked up an injury midway through the first half. I didn't think he looked 100% fit whatsoever. I mean, he wasn't even in the squad against Burton last week, and then Luther's also injured. So we brought on Jordan Houghton, placed him in the middle, and then Dan Phillips went to right wing back, which we saw him playing that role a little bit last week again against Burton. And then, in the first half, I think we showed spells of how we can play and how we can play against, big teams who play possession-based football. They play free-flowing, they play attacking, and that's how that Oxford side did play, especially in the second half. But I thought, really, with that spell in the first half, I think it was between the 35th and the 40th minute, we were popping it about really nicely. We looked really dangerous, especially from set pieces and crosses into the box from Dan Kemp and players out wide. And I really think that there was an opportunity there when we got to half-time. There was an opportunity for us to really take that game by the scruff of the neck, take the advantage. Because in that last 5 to 10 minutes, we showed some urgency. We showed a real good level of intensity that we should be playing at for the entirety of the game. But unfortunately, in the second half, it was really our downfall because we just didn't continue it whatsoever. When we did have the ball, it was lots of backwards passes. We were playing quite slowly. Lots of build-up play was poor. A lot of players just didn't really step up to the plate, unfortunately, in the second half. And Ramsey's side turned it on for me. And that's all they needed to do. They've got championship players. They've got a championship squad still, despite the embargo and all that stuff that's going on, really. They're still a top team. And if you've got players like Cameron Brannigan in League One, he is going to punish you. Because all he did in that game, he picked the ball up, he drove his team up the pitch, and him and the likes of, Adonkor, they also had Mark Harris as well. Just quality operators in League One that just punished us, for the lackadaisical and lethargic play we were seeing from a lot of players in our side. I mean, I think the front pair up front, Josh McGuinness put himself about a lot. He's a real commanding player up top that, demands the ball, hassles the centre-halves. But pairing him with Jamie Reid, who really just didn't do anything in the game. Again, 2 really subpar performances, I think, to open his league campaign. And I think Revs has got to be ruthless. He's got to mix it up. He really has, because we've got no potency, we've got no creativity in the final third. And, when you've got players like Phoenix on the bench, you're just wasting your time not taking these players off and substituting and being ruthless, because, Oxford could have punished us much earlier, but they took the upper hand in 60th minute and injected that quality, injected that energy into the game. And, the goal was going to come. They were pushing for it. There was a few opportunities. Philip Marshall made a really good save from Cameron Brannigan. But, we really fell asleep, and it was too negative from us. I mean, you're asking for an Oxford side to come onto you and punish you. Unfortunately, I just don't see where our reaction is coming from in terms of a goal, in terms of creating chances after we've conceded. I just don't see it. And there was a moment in the game, I think it was before we conceded the first goal, where substitutions were coming on and it was going to be Terry Taylor and Jordan Roberts ahead of Phoenix Patterson, which means that, we were going for more of a let's hold it out and see if we can get to that 90-minute mark and see if we can nick it. And that's not good enough. When you've got a player like Phoenix Patterson on your bench, every single manager in the league is going to prioritise Phoenix Patterson's creative and technical abilities, because that's what you've got to have in the team. You've got to have him on the pitch working his magic and trying to make that difference for us in the final third, creating. And unfortunately, Jordan Roberts, I know he scored, but what he's going to bring is work rate. He's going to bring physicality to see out a game, not Phoenix Patterson, who's going to come on and he's going to make that difference. He's going to be that spark. That's what you need. Substitutions, as I've said last week, need to be more intelligent. And I think we set up well today, but you need to counteract Oxford and what they're doing. You need to respond to their increase in tempo, their increase in energy, their increase in quality, which they had in the second half. You've got to respond to it. And I think we defended well in spells. There was a lot of good performances at the back. Saxon Early looked in really good shape. Lewis Freestone as well. TVC and Pidge still had good games. But, that link through the midfield to the attack, absolutely non-existent, unfortunately. And, you could see that game from minute one that we just weren't going to be potent. We weren't going to be good enough in the final third to create enough good chances. And it's a real shame, because we know in that first half that we saw moments of quality where we were expansive, where, we did play with the ball well, and we did play with pace and urgency. And it's just a shame that, been let down by, I think, poor decision making. I know it's early days, but, you've got to set a precedent in terms of your principles. You want to see this from your side in every single game. And we know what our weaknesses were last season. We scored 49 goals and got 6th place. Incredible achievement. We were so efficient last season. But, the goals don't lie. If you don't score the goals, you're not going to win the games. And we don't create the chances, we're not going to score the goals, we're not going to win the games. And this is the thing. So, really disappointing, because I think we are too overly negative when we shouldn't be. Definitely not. And today we set up perfectly in that 3-5-2. That's how you should set up at home. Phoenix shouldn't have been on the bench. You can't have a player of that quality not starting. I know we want to be a bit more defensive, but then we sit and we go to that 5 back and we instantly draw pressure onto ourselves, and we did that in the second half. And then the front line just doesn't offer enough whatsoever. And I know that Mellon and Sanderson come in, and they will have to come in. You've got to now make Jamie Reid earn his spot. Because I think Josh McGuinness has done enough in the last few games to prove that he's going to give a lot of decent qualities and useful qualities to this team. But Michael Mellon and Ollie Sanderson now need to come in and challenge Reedy for that spot, because Reedy's, I know he's a club legend, and rightly so, but Reedy's place at the moment should be under threat because he's not performing to the level that we know he can at his best. So Michael Mellon and Ollie Sanderson should come in, and Revs needs to be ruthless, because you've got to play your best team. Otherwise, we're sitting here with 1 point from potential 6 in 2 games that a lot of people would have said, we could be picking up 6 here, we could be picking up 4, we could be picking up 6. And Donny's a huge game. Next week is a really huge game, and you've got to get it right. I think we got the setup right today, but the performance didn't match it whatsoever. And if you link that to, then we can perfectly get that result at home, definitely. But disappointing, definitely. First home game of the season, but very early days. A lot to work on, quite obviously, I think. But we'll keep working on it. And I think we all know what we need to do and what we need to improve. And it's just, I think that Revs will know that as well. Scotty will know that. Everyone will know that. And we've just got to improve what we need to. We just need to play to that level that we know we can. We saw it in spells in that first half. We've just got to see it a little bit more. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you've enjoyed this post-match verdict. Didn't really enjoy the game, but that's how it goes. If you could give a like, a subscribe, and a follow on my TikTok, would be much, much appreciated. They don't all go our way. Onwards.